Good morning, and welcome to 24/7 World News. My name is Samee Ali, and this is my co-anchor,
Patel.
And today's broadcast, we are going to be discussing German immigration into the United States between the War of 1812 and the beginning of the Civil War. First off, we're going to be discussing the reasons that motivated the Germans to immigrate, which included intolerable economic conditions in Germany and religious prosecutions of the confessional Lutherans. And lastly, we're going to discuss how much of a tremendous impact it had on our society and economy. So, with that in mind, let's go on to our first point.
Wait.
Yeah.
You want to hear a German joke?
Sure.
Where do Germans go for vacation?
I don't know.
Germany.
Okay, so as I was saying, let's go on to our first report, which is Jacob talking about the reasons for German immigration.
The German immigration occurred between the time period of 1812 and 1860. They prospered with astonishing ease. They were building towns in Wisconsin, they had agricultural colonies in Texas, and religious communities in Pennsylvania. They arrived at different times for many different reasons. One of the primary causes for the immigration was seeking to escape the economic hardships. Foreign imports flooded the German markets and the German industry could not compete. In addition, inheritance tradition of dividing farms among families was making farms so small that they were unsuccessful. Also, an increase in the German population and the potato famine of 1840 caused more immigration. Another reason is political unrest. The government and the people had different views. One specific group called the 48ers came to America for a better democracy. These group of people were refugees from the abortive Democratic Revolution of 1848. German immigration was also the result of the religious persecution of the Lutherans. In 1817, King Frederick Wilhelm III of Prussia decreed a union of the Lutheran and Reformed churches in Prussia, and several rulers of the smaller German state followed this. Most were upset with this decision and immigrated to the U.S. so that they could worship God without the interference of the state. During the first half of the 19th century, German young men were to serve up to 5 years in the German army for a pay of 4 cents a day. The army was full of hardship for those who were not among the officers, so the majority of young men immigrated to escape the situation.
Jiz, can you tell us where the German immigrants mostly settled in the United States?
Yeah, the Germans mostly settled in the traditional, what is called German belt of Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa. They were also dispersed among other parts of the U.S.
Thank you, Jis, for that amazing report on German immigration. As we have learned, there are many political, economic, social, and religious reasons that caused German immigrants to move to the United States. So now, let's move on to our second point.
Wait.
Yeah.
I have another joke.
What is it this time?
What tea do German soccer players drink?
I don't know.
A penalty.
Meet, please stop.
All right.
So again, as I was saying, let's go on to the effect Germans had on the nation's economy.
The Germans decided to immigrate to the United States was to seek economical opportunities. As my colleague just said, Germany was suffering from political distress. So when the Germans arrived to the United States, they settled in cities such as Milwaukee, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and New York. Their main focus was the beer industry. Since people in the United States love beer and German as well, the beer industry grew. This led to more jobs for American and German people. The Germans mostly focused on the beer industry and started to import it around the world. Also, as they contributed economically, they also contributed with our society that is now today. Like the United States education, the Germans introduced kindergarten, physical education, and gymnastics at school, which later on the United States took for us for the education.
Thanks, Isabel, for explaining the various impacts the Germans had on our national economy. So now, lastly, we're going to go look...
Wait.
Meet, how many more jokes do you have?
Just one more.
Okay, what is it?
Why did the Germans start 2 world wars?
I don't know. Why?
Because they couldn't get any visitors.
Guys, I apologize for my co-anchor.
Okay, all right.
Let's go back to Jiz Jacob with an interview with a German couple who has recently immigrated to the United States.
All right, now let's have an interview with the German family. Hi guys.
Hey.
Hello,
So what are your names?
My name is William Ulmer.
and mine is Ada Ulmer.
Okay. So what do you guys work as? What are your jobs?
I'm a farmer and I own my own farm. And like it's basically my house.
Is that your house?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm a housewife. I take care of the kids and do all the housework. And I also help them out with the farm.
So, what made you guys immigrate to the Americas?
I feel like the main reason we moved to Americas from Germany was for economic prosperity. We weren't doing that well back in Germany because it was really hard to make money there. So I thought for the best, like the sake of our family, we should have moved to America.
So, how do the children feel about coming to America?
The children are excited and like happy for new adventures, but at the same time, they sometimes get homesick. Like want to go back to Germany because of like their old house and like their old friends. But I think overall, after time goes on, they'll be happy.
So, are you satisfied here?
Yes, we are. There's better economic opportunities here, and I mean overall, just everything's way much better than Germany.
So, if things get better in Germany, are you guys willing to move back?
I feel like since we've already started a new life here in America, I think that's where we're going to stay for like the sake of our family and in order to make a new family and new generations.
Alright. Well, thank you for interviewing.
No problem.
Thank you.
Alright.
Now, let's look to a short documentary about German immigrants in the United States. Many of them who arrived landed themselves in big cities such as Philadelphia, New York, and New Jersey. However, some of them also found themselves in Columbus, Ohio. German immigrants began settling here in the early 1800s, and many more became before the Ohio Canal was even built. Being a remote town, the construction of the National Road in 1832 helped bring more and more German immigrants who soon began buying land and settling in farms. Without further ado, let's begin.
When the Germans came to Columbus, this is what they found at the south end. A forest so thick that when roads were eventually carved out, tree stumps were everywhere and posed a hazard to horses and carriage drivers. The city of Columbus was young and growing. Immigration from Germany was, at first, just a trickle. The Germans left the familiarity and political oppression of the Old World for a better life. Their experiences are echoed by those who came much, much later.
When we came from Germany in 1955, we arrived in Columbus 5 o'clock in the morning. I think that day it was 100 degrees, and we was dressed. Now for winter time, then it was cold on a boat. It was rough sea all the time. Our sponsor was from Columbus, so we came here to Columbus. Our desire was to go to Eureka, California. Or when we came to Columbus then, we ran out of money. It used to be a time everybody wanted to go to America. They think money grows on trees in America. Everybody had that desire to go to the States, get rich. But after they came, it really was not that way. They had to start smaller, you know.
I walk along the Ohio River.
It was 6 weeks crossing the Atlantic in the early 1800s, and hundreds more miles still across a rugged country to the young city of Columbus. So remote that it would be 1825 before ground was broken for the Ohio Canal near Newark. So distant that the National Road wouldn't reach Columbus until the early 1830s. In 1832, when the National Road first arrived in Columbus, the population is about 2,400 people.
By 1834, the combination of the National Road with the canal has boosted the population to 5,000 people, just like that. A lot of people coming to Columbus, looking around, possibly with the idea of going on further, discover that the National Road, which they had been traveling on, doesn't go any farther, and it won't for several years. And so some people who hadn't really planned on living here at all makes it this far, hears that basically there might be cholera a little farther ahead over in Indiana, and decides to stay here. Now, the question might arise, well, why is German Village sitting where it is? And the key to that is to remember that Livingston Avenue was originally South Public Lane, which was the southern boundary of the city. But many people moving down to this part of the world were basically buying land down here because it was cheap, because it was outside the city limits. Pure and simple.
When the Germans finally started to arrive in significant numbers around 1840, this was typical of their first, more permanent homes. Story-and-a-half houses, shoulder to shoulder.
And you could shoot a shotgun right through because the kitchen door was in line with the front door. And that's why they called them shotgun houses.
The common theme is that these people were very modest, very simple. They weren't showy. They weren't trying to impress their neighbors. They just wanted a very simple, clean home for their family.
The Germans, being as frugal as they were, would build their houses right on the sidewalk. And then the idea was to leave enough backyard, because these were all small lots, for a flower garden, a vegetable garden, and for an outdoor privy.
The Germans brought a little bit of their home country to Columbus. Reinhardt Street is named after Jacob Reinhardt, a worker on the National Road who settled here and printed Columbus's most successful German-language newspaper. Kossuth Street was named for Louis Kossuth, a fugitive of Hungary who was a champion of civil liberties, a cause close to the hearts of Germans who fled political oppression. Statues of Kossuth are found in German settlements throughout the U.S.
Thank you, Joseph, for that amazing interview with the German couple.
Now, in conclusion for today's broadcast, the reasons that the Germans came to America were varied. Intolerable economic conditions in the German states and a desire for betterment in as short time as possible was one of the primary causes for coming to America for the Germans. Not only the poorer people came to America, there were many of the comparatively wealthy Germans who also came to better themselves economically. They had heard of how easy it was to increase one's wealth, so they wanted to increase the wealth they already had. And with the typical German interest in making the most of opportunities, some of the families embarked to seek a greater fortune in the New World. As these new waves of German immigrants flooded into the United States, they began to establish themselves financially well. Many of them began to establish their own businesses and provided jobs for Americans. However, most of them they took jobs that were already existing in the Americas. Therefore, many of the white Americans hated them and created anti-German sentiment towards these Germans. The white Americans felt as if their jobs were being stolen from them. Also, the German immigrants began to congregate within American culture by getting involved within American politics. Coming from a province run by princes, they valued the American freedom provided by the United States, and they hoped to continue to live their lives here in future generations.
What happened, Meat? You ran out of jokes?
Yeah, man.
Alright guys, join us next week on 24/7 World News, where we discuss the Mexican immigration.